Welcome back. And today we're talking about the assumption that we only have to do one thing, or are we meant to do only one thing? Stay tuned.
The first rule of Insight Club is you don't talk about Insight Club. You do Insight Club. The second rule of Insight Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Insight Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Insight Club. So where's your mind today?
Okay, I'll go first. We're just talking about how we are in transition period, and me and you are in transition at the same time. No wonder. And we've been through quite a few changes, so I think we are a good um I don't want to say example, trial.
Yeah, case study.
Experiment, case
Yeah.
study
Yeah.
for what it is to change many times in your path. And yeah, you had a great assumption for us to challenge today.
Yeah. So let's get into it. I just want to say that what struck me listening to our intro music this time is, we talk about checking all our other assumptions at the door, but in order to do that, we have to know what the assumptions are. We can't check them if we think they're just part of how the world needs to be. And this assumption we're getting into today about what it means to be a master and have mastery and be successful. I think that's something that's just so deeply woven into us, it would be hard to even recognize it's an assumption. And it came up for me because we are in these transitions in our work and we've been through transitions before. And I also think we're people who embrace transition, like the work that I've done with you in the Hot Light Sisterhood and having you as a mentor and having you introduce me to spiritual practices and creative practices. A lot of them are about just allowing that new thing to come through. And the assumption being, I must be growing. This must be the right thing. If I feel stuck where I am, it must mean that something new is calling me. And that's a very different assumption than you should go to college, study one thing, do that thing for the rest of your life, and that's what success looks like. So that's what we want to dive into today. And I just to kind of orient us, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this thing. Malcolm Gladwell talks about it in one of his books, but this idea of it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something or a master of something. And he's talking about the Beatles and how they're playing all these different nightclubs all over Europe. I mean, just weird, seedy places that you would never imagine. They were one of the biggest, if not the biggest rock group ever. And they got their 10,000 hours in playing in some real weird clubs where nobody was paying attention to them, but they put in the time with their instruments, performing with one another, and just performing generally, and built all those skills. And there's a time and place for being able to master that. Like when you see an elite athlete, they have mastered that one movement of their body or a few movements of their body. When you watch a master musician, same thing. Absolutely, there's this place for mastery, and as you work for 10,000 hours just practicing the one thing, practicing that fingering on the violin or that the layup in basketball. But I would say that's not the only kind of mastery. And for people who feel stuck in what they're doing, it can end up feeling like a massive weight, because we go, well, hold on, I've been told that the path to success is to choose one thing and to get incredibly good at it. And if I move to doing something else, then it's like, oh, I've lost maybe I haven't even gotten to 10,000 hours yet, but I've lost the 2,000 or 5,000 hours that I've already invested in that first thing. And now I'm starting over as a beginner. And we even have this phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, that we use pejoratively to describe somebody who doesn't have those 10,000 hours, doesn't have that mastery, isn't the go-to person in one thing, and is maybe, kind of doing this here and everything over there. So I'm curious to hear from you, like, for you, Lise, like, are you aware of consciously having a definition of mastery?
Um, Actually, as you were speaking about this, I was thinking, yes, there's that 10,000 hours assumption. Yet there's another thing that challenges that, and I do believe that practice makes for like you being able to do something that looks effortless, but it's effortless because you've done it so many times that you have the muscle memory already. You don't even have to think, and you can just feel through what you have to do. Yet what I see in newer studies about learning is that everything that we do in a playful way, we learn much faster than just by repetition, 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 repetition. So that challenges things a little bit, because if someone is enjoying what they're doing, maybe it's not 10,000 hours. And I'm not saying that it's going to cut to 5,000, but let's say that you cut to, I don't know, 7,000, and you get something much better than someone who does 10,000 hours, but like suffering to do that.
Oh. So an aspect of play. Interesting. We've talked a lot about play and how one of its prerequisites is openness, curiosity,
And
not
part of this,
taking ourselves too seriously.
not taking ourselves too seriously. I feel like this might be part of, and I'm thinking maybe the masters that we truly see as masters, not the I'm attempting to be a master, but the people who truly achieve that level of mastery are the ones who get in that flow. They are enjoying themselves. So 10,000 hours for them is like multiplied by 10. I don't know. It ends up being much more, because it it is part of, they become one with whatever they're doing, and
Yeah.
just not just I'm gonna repeat this until I get to master.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the difference between somebody effortlessly sitting in meditation and then hours have passed by and they're unaware, and somebody effortfully sitting in meditation for even 20 minutes and just going, when is this going to be done?
Yes.
And I keep thinking of masters in the sense of gurus, and
Mm.
thinking in a lot of lineages there are these stories of the people who become spiritual masters because they walk away from their
Mm.
life in some way, right? It's like, oh, I have this life, and then I just make a complete turn in a
Yeah.
different direction. And like, there's giving yourself over to mastery as a form of devotion,
Mm.
which is this release and detachment. And we see it, there are several stories of, walking away from, like, I'm a prince and I have all of these great riches.
Buddha.
And then I walk away to go meditate under the Bodhi tree. It's, that's a kind of common thing of what we're walking away from. But that's like the pinnacle of success and material reward and doing well. Like, you're doing well. You got a whole kingdom. And then going, I will start over and be a beginner and go sit under the tree and learn that way. And then, like, that kind of mastery is what we were emulating,
Mm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I wish I had the mastery to just give it all up and devote myself to curiosity and play.
And here's where we go with the calling, right? We're talking about having the mastery or the calling. And I just, so anyone who watches this is just a playing here. I don't think you have to have either the calling or a mastery. I feel like you can be a master through your calling. But the reason why I thought, mastery versus calling, and here the thought that came to mind was that mastery sometimes it's like that's the decision, right? So if I'm gonna be a master in this is like who I am, what I do, and I'm gonna focus and devote 100% to this. Where calling can end up pulling you to different directions than you initially thought uh, it was going to be. Sometimes we get one breadcrumb of where you're going, and then you follow that and you keep pulling that uh, cord, and you discover new stuff. And sometimes nothing makes sense. It feels like you are tying together a bunch of different things, but it's because the path is not done yet. And this is where I feel like even where you're going right now tells a lot about this, because you mentioned uh, find helping people find their way, their flow, their uh, process to get creative. And this is a break from the old paradigm of like, this is a formula and this is how you follow this works, this is follow the recipe and everything is gonna be okay. And I feel like that's what mastery ends up being as well. It's like, oh, just keep practicing. And something is broken in that, because if it was really just keep practicing, we would have a lot more people who are masters out there.
Oh, yes, I can feel the truth of that. I can feel the truth of that. I have a friend who's an incredible musician, like in her own right, sought after musician, and she also helps other musicians to step into like their full artistry. And a lot of her work is in the space of helping them let go of the, I mean, not let go of the technique, but recognize if you're doing the technique and you're doing it in a tense way, you're not going to get that beautiful expression. Or if you have performance anxiety, then like the soulfulness is not going to come through. And so it's this recognition of exactly what you're saying, that the mastery isn't enough, because the musicians that she works with are at the top of their game. They're incredibly well trained, they practice so much. Um, but what the piece that she's bringing in for them is a mindfulness, a body attunement, a
Mm.
spiritual component that is like, hey, there's there's the mechanics for sure, and you need to get those dialed in, but there's something ethereal and outside that's like this spark of inspiration. And yeah, I mean, I think that is why we don't have as many masters as you think we would if it were really just about cranking out 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Now that you mention music, this is so obvious when you see talent shows. Like,
Mm.
there are those people that are so spot on the technique, and they don't get out of tune, not even a second. They do those runs that are perfect, but it's lifeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are those people that like just own the stage. and they might have some flaws, but even the flaws sound beautiful because it feels like it's meant to be there.
Yeah, it's captivating.
Yes.
It's captivating.
And that even speaks to me in a way, because I just watched anti-hero movie the other day. You're probably familiar with Venom.
Oh, I'm familiar with the character, but I haven't seen the movies.
Yeah. So
Okay.
went to see it. I used to watch um the cartoon when I was a kid. Love the movie. And I was just thinking how we need that back, and you're probably really aware of this because you work with story. We need that backstory of the character to actually connect with them and love it, a character that is so weird. But it's those flaws, it is those things that usually we would think that this is not the best side that you want to show, that makes us love a character and or love someone even. It is the things that make them different, not they're so heroic and all this stuff. This is part, of course, but it's not the reason. It's that backstory.
Yeah. So that's very interesting because you're bringing up like another side of this idea of mastery, which is, do we even want it to be perfect? Like,
Yeah.
does that serve us beyond? Is it possible? Does that serve us when we get the result of the thing that's so? I mean, I see this in writing all the time, and it's one of the things I really want to point out to people. And I'm talking before we had a lot of AI generated content on the scene, and it definitely was being written by people, where you'd see something and it was very sterile. And I would read it and I would go, oh, that person, I'm sure, sat with it and just revised it to the point where their energy wasn't in it anymore. And it's technically very spot on. And yes, it's concise. And they made sure they had, variety of word choice. And all of these technical components, but it is dead. And so for the last 8 or so years, as I've been helping people in the space of marketing and copywriting, it's one of my big pieces of advice. It's like, yes, read it through, make sure it says what you wanted it to say, but then just get it out there. Like, we don't want it to be so revised that it's sterile. We want your energy out there.
We don't want to miss the character.
Yeah, we don't want to miss the character. And it's not even like flaws necessarily. It's just your initial spark to put it out there feels very different than your analytical mind. And we need both, right? We need that creative impulse. We do need some structure so it's coherent to other people. We do need to go back through and go, is there a more clear way of saying that? Or, you were talking about this before we started recording it. Am I talking about this in a way that makes sense to me because I've gone on this journey, but that people who are at the beginning of the journey might not recognize or understand? Like, they don't have that reference point yet. So yeah, we want to make sure it connects with our audience. But we don't want to like make it so sterile. So this brings up this idea of, when we're talking about mastery, are we perhaps taking people away from that impulse? And this brings it back to me. For me, it brings it back to this idea of like the mastery versus the calling. And the transition point that I'm in right now is not my higher self coming in and being like, do something completely new. It's not like, hey, Megan, stop focusing on writing and become like a race car driver. It's really just bringing me back to what's been my soul mission this whole time, right?
Yeah.
Which is, so I carry a lot of voice wounds. Like, I have lots and lots of lifetimes where I stayed quiet and people got hurt, or I was a voice piece for power and people got hurt. And damn, that is uncomfortable to know. And so I came here this time with all this wonderful technology to speak up and help other people speak up from a place of love. in ways that like enrich our human experience and that speak truth to power, but not in a shouty way, in a like, you know, self autonomous, self sovereign way. Like, actually, we're gonna be over here, loving each other. And we're not going to be manipulated anymore. Like, that's one of the
Yes.
core things, right? So this is like, okay, this, I know this has been my mission, but what keeps happening to me in my career is I go, okay, well, how do I wrap that in the commerce? How
Mm.
do I bring that to the marketplace? And over the years, it's been like, well, I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. And everything has been fulfilling and valuable. And has like all of the aspects of my career have helped people, but they've all been this is the tributary. And it's like, Megan, there's this main river, right? The
Yeah.
tributary helps people, but it has like very little force behind it because it's this little eddy over here. And like, come back to the main flow of the river. But what it, so that's like my perspective from the inside is I'm returning to my one life's purpose, my soul's mission. But in the context of living in a capitalist society, what it feels like is I'm shifting in my career one more time. I'm giving up all the mastery I've built up, all the however many thousands of hours doing one thing and switching to do something else. And it's like my ego is really having a time with it.
I feel like it might be that it's not either mastery or the calling. I feel like the thing that we're talking about is the function for the mastery, because what we're talking about, not losing the character, I feel there's two ways, and I'm thinking about this as I'm speaking. So there's two ways of not losing that character. There are people that are going to go into the path of mastery to the point of perfection that ends up lifeless but perfect, and then they start reintroducing the character because they see that something is missing, and this will be through spiritual practices, this will be through actually seeking inspiration from something higher, this will be something that makes them return to that, and it will be effortless at this point because the person already has all the technique and all this, and then they allow it to come back. And there is also that path where the person maybe naively doesn't go all the way into the path of mastery and doesn't fall for the thing that you need to learn all these things before you do anything, so that they end up, which I feel like it was my case as well, so that because you don't know you have to, you end up doing things that other people think that aren't possible, and then you end up doing it well. Uh,
Yes, that naive feeling of like, oh, I didn't know you couldn't do it this way.
I didn't know it wasn't possible, so I just allowed myself to be guided.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah. And I think it's really common for people who are seekers, especially spiritual seekers, to change several times. To, I mean, I know you've had different like moments of mastery in your career where you're like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this thing. And then, oh, but I'm called to something higher, and it's connected, right? Like, you've been working in the space of helping people be visible in so many different iterations,
Yeah.
right? Like from just very 3D reality graphics and branding to like branding based on astrology, which is when I connected with you, you know,
Yeah.
to like these deeper parts of ourselves becoming visible. But it seems like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's you refining and like uncovering deeper layers of the mission you've been on the whole time. It's like you growing into the giant oak tree, you know, like there
And
you're the sapling.
that's exactly where I want to get when I mention function, and
Yeah.
function is part of design as well. So of course I'm gonna think of function and beauty in like interconnected in this, but I see the same in you, and I feel like it's easier for you to see in me and for me to see in you because we're not so close to ourselves. Well, we're close to ourselves, but like it's easier to see the other, right?
Yeah.
I see you refining what you've done as well. But here's what I mean with function. We never got out, neither me or you, we never got out of our essence. We never got out of what we're helping people. You never got out of helping people use their voice for good. And I never got out from helping people be seen by who they are, which you just reflected to me yesterday. Actually, I was like, oh yeah, that's the common thread in all of what I've been doing the whole
Yeah.
time. Uh,
I've
which
definitely had my wobbles, Lise. I've definitely had my wobbles. Like I woke up at one point and it was like, oh my God, I'm no longer teaching kids the writing process. I'm helping them just pass tests. And that's when I knew I had to get out.
Yeah, for sure. In the past, I got out as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, from the moment we started pulling the thread,
Yeah.
I feel like we've been in the same path, in just refining with different things. Where it changes is, so far we thought whatever we had to share needed to have a monetary function for our clients as well.
Yeah.
And here's where I feel like it's the case of expanding our awareness of who wants to work with us and who wants to get these services, because this is still low in the Maslow pyramid, right? It's still like, I need to gain a result that is um, material for this to be of worth.
Yeah.
But for clients who pass that level and are actually seeking to fill that void, that it's so hard to fill that void that everyone feels, and that only something higher, either spiritual or creative, will feel. It's not the monetary value that is the result. The result is something that elevates our soul. It's something that creates legacy, something that makes us feel like life is worth living.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, that's my big insight for the day. Yeah. Amazing. And from the point of view of like what comes easily to us, we assume isn't of much value, right? I'm always in this conversation about what makes my life meaningful and fulfilling. Like that's 90% of what I'm occupied with in my life. 10% is like, how will I materially survive? Like, it's like, oh, we're definitely not masters of this part. Right.
Yeah.
But so I forget that helping people get in touch with that calling, that feeling of feeling fulfilled in themselves is something others are seeking. And that has a has a value. So thank you. That's huge.
We are in a circle where, thank God, people actually broke out from the, like, that hamster wheel of like, you just need to work to survive and to pay the bills and so on, even though we have to pay the bills. But we get to see that life is not just about the bills.
Yeah.
Right, we get to see that there's something bigger. We saw behind the veil. We had our ecstatic experiences, so like we feel that there's so much more. We created so much more than this. And I feel like sometimes I get, when I step out and I get to interact with other people, I see that there are other people like us out there, and that are even like more conscious and more aware than me, and I can see, oh, I have more to expand. There are people doing things that I haven't thought of
Yeah.
yet, and that I get to connect and get to know and so on. And at the same time, I get to connect with people that I see that are still in that hamster wheel, and that might even look at me, maybe you as well, like, huh, I wonder, what are you doing? How are
Mm.
you living like that? And like
Yeah.
that 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 are not aware that, oh, there are other things as well. So there are so many levels of consciousness that sometimes we feel stuck because we don't see the path behind us, all the things that we broke, that we uh, got through, to be able to actually even have the courage to pivot again and again and again.
Yeah. Um, that's beautiful. There's this concept in education of having kids of different ages in the same classroom, with the benefit that the ones who've, gotten something already teach it to the younger ones. It doesn't have to be by age, but kind of generally speaking. But the ones who've gotten it, they teach it to the ones who haven't yet gotten it, reinforcing their own learning and creating these social bonds. Um, and it get like the younger ones have somebody to look up to. The older ones feel this sense of accomplishment and independence when they help the younger ones, and it builds this community. And that's what I'm hearing you say about, like, we're all in these different stages, and I can look ahead and be like, oh, what are you doing? What are your practices? Because, oh my God, your energy is so grounded and amazing. And then
Yeah.
maybe people are having that feeling about me and I'm not aware. So
Yeah.
just enjoying that we're in this milieu, that we're like having that opportunity. That's one thing that comes up. And another thing that's coming up is that we are on a path of mastery, and it's mastery of accepting and listening to our calling. And that results in you've been talking about the function that results in the function changing.
Yeah.
The core mastery is, I'm going to be the best Megan I can be in this lifetime. Like, I'm going to be as attentive to what my soul is calling me to do as I can. And then, of course, that's going to involve sometimes course corrections, right? Like at the point where I realized, oh my God, I'm running a tutoring business. I'm no longer teaching kids the love of expression and writing. This is like a gotta pass this test, gotta prepare for that, like stressful thing. I left, I switched my business entirely. So some is going to be course correction, and then some is going to be, oh wait, but now I know about this, or now there's this new technology, and now there's this new opportunity, and now I've just met this person, and there's this new synergy, and iterating.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm becoming a master of being myself.
Yes. So I feel like this is a big insight. What you just said is, it's not being a master of something that, like, many people can pick something to be a master of. But if you practice your self mastery, the mastery of being you, that's success,
Yeah.
because no one else can do it.
No one else can do it. I'm in a league of my own. And I mean, and it also, I think, shines a light on we are these souls having these human experiences, and there are so many gifts. And so I'm so grateful I got to come on this ride being human this time. So there are so many gifts that come along with that, but that it is not everything about who we are. Like, this human journey is not everything about who we are. And then the overlay of human culture, or like our specific culture on top of the human experience, is definitely not our essence. And so all the overlays, so the fact that I'm alive in this time with these social norms and these like 3D reality constraints, like I'm in a live at a time where you have to pay for car insurance. Okay. Like that's not something inherent about human beings. So like my skill and ability at how well I pay for my car insurance, like why would I want to use that as the rubric for my success in this lifetime? And that's a
Yeah.
silly example, obviously, because I don't think anybody is walking around with that as a life goal. Like, I'm going to be the best at paying for my car insurance, right? It's an annoyance. It's something we have to deal with. But there are plenty of, we might go, I'm going to be the master of, making money by scamming people. You're like, okay, cool. But that's a distraction. That's not what your soul came here to do. So we can easily, in the mastery game, get called to focus on something like, I'm a master of this video game on my phone. You're like, when we get into that mode, we snap out and go like, oh, I'm kind of wasting my life. Right. I remember back when World of Warcraft was big, Grady had a friend who like literally was on it every waking moment he wasn't at work, and eventually went, I have a problem. I have an addiction. I need to, it was wonderful that he like broke free from it.
Yeah.
But it had been this all consuming thing until he went, wait, this is not life. This is not why I'm here.
And part of the reason why things like that have such a addiction, like on people, created some such addiction on people, is because it has a path that feels like you can win.
Yeah.
And life is not so much like do this and this and this and then you win.
Yeah. And it gives you clear steps, right? You go, it's like, okay, you did that. Now you're in the next level. Here's the objective. And we know what to do. Yeah. And we have to create our own objectives as well as our own rubrics of success.
And that's because humans do need that element of growth. We need to feel like we are growing, we are changing levels, right? And maybe that's why we feel like, okay, at this point my calling is shifting because I've done everything that I felt that I could do at this level, so I need to change as well.
That's a nice way of thinking about it. Yeah, and I feel like I've learned what I needed to learn in this level more so than because I don't have a feeling of like, all right, I met the big goal. For some people it might be like, okay, I entered that field, I got really good, I got the award for being amazing. I'm never the person who's like, oh, I got the award for being nobody's paying attention to what I'm doing, right? There are no awards. Although I did one time get Librarian of the Year award when I used to be a volunteer librarian. But I'm not shifting because I'm like, oh, been there, did it all, got the t-shirt. I'm like, I think I've learned what I needed to learn. It gets to where I'm no longer feeling lit up.
Yeah. Yeah, for me is definitely not just where I'm feeling lit up and where I feel I still have a lot to learn, but also where where are my blind spots that I still want to develop and see, and also where are the people that I can still touch. Because I feel like sometimes this is one thing that I feel sometimes I have this need to help, but at the same time I'm fully aware that to help we need to help people who want to be helped. This is the Virgo problem. We want to help everyone, but not everyone wants to be helped. Not everyone needs to be helped.
Some people are like, ew, get away from me with your help.
Right, yeah. But when you are working on inspiring people, that's a different thing,
Mm.
because you don't have to be like, do you want my help? Do you want my help? Do you want my help? You can actually do something that will inspire, and people will, like a book, for example, like the chapter that you wrote, like it will inspire people. Music, it will inspire people. Anyway, all these things are things that you get to throw in the universe and let whoever needs it to get. And I feel like that fills my soul much more, and brings me much more joy than trying to help who doesn't want my help necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm still just so whoa what you said about Maslow's pyramid, and I'm also thinking about it in terms of the chakras, right? It's like
Yeah.
when we're in that the root, when we're in that, like I just need to get the material stuff.
Mm.
And I don't mean even in terms of how much material stuff we have, but just our feelings around it, our emotions around it, because we all know this to be true, that you can have a lot and still feel in terror that you're going to lose it, or that you don't have enough, or that you're in scarcity, and you can have very little and be like, cool. I feel like I'm taken care of and like I'm resourced, right? It's not the actual amount of stuff that does this. It's the way we're relating energetically to the world, and to trauma, and to life experience, to everything, right? But it's all internal to us.
Yeah.
But that speaking to people who are even just in the second chakra as opposed to the first, who are like, I'm in that space of creativity, that's massively different, or like in the higher level of the needs. That's the insight I'm taking away from this, that there's a whole pyramid of needs, and I
And I
have been in that, like, overly focused on I've got to figure out how I can help you make you more materially successful, versus I can help you become more uh more successful in the realm of feeling fulfilled.
and I love that you brought the chakras with the Maslow pyramid, because I feel like this speaks a lot to what I'm trying to talk, but I can't make it clear on my mind. Uh, that's where inspiring comes in as well. Because when we talk about speaking through the chakras, we can only talk with someone at the, like, receive from the level that they are, but we can bring them from that place up. So that's what inspiration can do. Like, like a song can transmute, like you being like in the base chakra, and then suddenly you go up and you're in heart chakra, and you start to expand your vision and see that you're not the only one, you're not alone, and it's not just like I'm gonna die.
Yeah, I told you that very short playlist I made of your songs, our
Yes.
songs together, I put in that order specifically because I was like, I need to be met where I am, but then I want to be taken higher.
Yes.
I want to start out with some like yelling and
That's what I feel like it is about the inspiration, because if we get out of that paradigm of the function needs to be giving a monetary result, it needs to be a material result, and we get to, okay, I'm gonna inspire first, then we get to help much more people, because we're talking to people, meeting people where they are, and not just like old school marketing, making people stay in that place, but actually elevating.
oh my goodness, yeah. Oh, that's such an interesting overlay to this, right? It's like, but I really need you to stay in material need because all of my marketing is about how you're going to be more materially successful. So I really need you to stay focused on being a material. Holy cow. I mean, no wonder, yeah, like, no wonder I'm feeling called to step away from teaching people marketing because we're in that shift. We're in that paradigm shift, but we're also in a really awkward place right now. And I'm just like, I don't want to be in that mix, you know. I'm just gonna step over here.
And people are a lot in that fear space and doubt and insecurity already. I feel like the world needs more perspectives and inspiration right now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So my big insight is I am becoming a master of me. And my insight assignment is to just to notice. Like I want to be focusing on that and giving myself credit and celebration for that. As I especially am like, oh, I'm building something new and it feels scary and I'm walking away from something that's been working. I want to just like take time to go, I'm becoming a master of me. Good job. Good job.
I love this. I feel like my big insight is the same, and I actually feel like even realizing that thread of the mastery of us never changed, and it is the same. Like even realizing the um, common thread for me and the common thread for you in that path shows that it's not deviating from the path. It's just one more way we are like unfolding that mastery that we're creating. No one else can do it.
Yeah. I remember as a kid being fascinated by looking at atlases and how they had the page that was the political view, right? Is what it's called. And it has all the cities and the capitals and things like that. And then you turn the page and there's the, oh goodness, I forget what it's called, but it's like the rivers and the mountains that you don't see any of the cities. Well, which one's the correct map? They're both correct maps, right? It's about the context. And so much of the time I spend looking at that political map of mastery, like, but what's my financial success? And am I being recognized? And do I have awards? And do people, think I am successful? And if they just flip the page, it's like, this is what is underlying the rivers and streams and mountains. And that's the place where I'm on a roll. Like I'm a master. I mean, I'm definitely, I feel like a badass when I think about, am I mastering my soul's mission on earth? So I just need to remember to flip the page and not stay stuck on only that one view.
I hope you see how poetic it is what you just said. But have you stopped to see the rivers and the mountains?
Yeah. What's underneath before people got there and started, putting their material rules in place.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Those boundaries don't actually exist in nature. those borders are all just, put on after the fact. And they can be helpful. They can be very functional. When it comes to like, oh, I'm crossing a border. I need Canadian money instead of US money, or, like, yeah, there's lots of functionality, but it's not the deepest layer of reality.
Yeah. And the birds don't care.
The birds don't care. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. I love this. So let us know what's your biggest insight, and until next time in Cycle.
Take care.
Take care.